just as many people don't know where Oz comes from or don't have no idea that you are of Turkish descent, they also have no idea that you are Muslim. You're from a very strong Muslim tradition. How does the Muslim religion affect your identity or sense of yourself?
You know, I've struggled a lot with my Muslim identity, in part because within my family there were two very different perspectives on it. My mother's family is a very secular family. They're very proud that they're secular Turks. And by that I mean, and for people who don't study how religion plays roles in other countries, in America we have gotten very comfortable with the division of church and state. Our religion is very dear to us, it's precious to us, but we don't look to our political leaders to give us religious insights. That is a departure from the norm in Islam. Islam is a religion, but it's a law. And so it is very often, in fact, in almost every country but Turkey, they are integrated. So your political leaders are your religious leaders. And so in Turkey, there was a separation made. It was a very painful event. The caliphate, who was the pope of the Muslims, was thrown out of Turkey. Imagine deposing the pope in order to free your country to grow, which is what Ataturk had as a vision. And so my mother's family are very strong secularists. They're religious people, but in privacy. They never flaunt it, they never talk about it. It's frankly none of your business, in their opinion, that they happen to be Muslim. In fact, they don't care what you are. And historically, Turkey, the Ottoman Empire, was all about that. If you look at the history of the Jews, for example, the fact that in 1492, when Columbus was sailing the ocean blue, the Spaniards were kicking all the Jews out, and they came to Turkey, many of them. And they lived there for hundreds of years, these ancient, beautiful cemeteries in Turkey that are all in Hebrew. I can't read any of the letters. They had a very strong culture there. They were welcome to Turkey because Turkey, Istanbul, was a meritocracy. The country respected the ability of Jews and Christians to come and thrive in Istanbul. And that, I think, is what my mother's side of the family revered. They felt, and even the Nazis, when they were persecuting the Jews in the Second World War, they fled to Istanbul. My father, who was educated at Istanbul University in the 40s, probably got the best medical education in the world, because they had been able to collect all these spectacular physicians from Central Europe, most of whom were Jewish, to teach them for just a few years before they finally went back to their own countries or to Israel or to America. And so my mother's family was all about the ability of people with very different backgrounds to come together and have an integrated society. My father's family, a much more traditional family from the central parts of Anatolia, where religion was their core essence. It's what defined who they were. It's what gave them their morality. They would never feel comfortable separating away their view towards the law from the view towards religion. They just seemed so obviously and beautifully and elegantly integrated. Why would you try to carve them apart? And I think much of the civil unrest that's occurred in Turkey this century has been because those two factions could not agree on it. We have the same problem in America. And so as a Turk growing up in America with one parent from one side of the religious wall and one from the other side, and of course America clearly supporting the secular background, I found myself tugged more and more towards the spiritual side of the religion rather than the legal side of the religion. In my mind, religion is sort of like the playing field. It's the rules of the game. The field is 100 yards by 30 yards. You're going to have hash marks every 10 yards. You know, those are just the rules. The actual game, when you actually engage other human beings, that's a spiritual connection that defines my religiosity, about who I am and my relationship to God. And that is something that I have found not just in Islam. And, you know, my father's family is from Konya, that area, which is like being from Nashville, you know, in America. It's the Quran Belt. and so the whirling dervishes were there, and they were Sufis, these whirling dervishes. And although my father's family is not strictly speaking of the Sufi order, that's the order I resonated to, because it was much more mystical, much more interested in taking away the 99% of reality that we think is there, and looking at the real important 1% that's beneath that veneer, the true connection with God. And I have found that not just in the Sufi insights into Islam, but in my wife's religion, because although she's Protestant, she's a follower of the Swedenborgian Protestantism. And Swedenborg was a man, he's called the Buddhist of the West. But the Sufis would revere him because he was all about the connection. If you look at the Mevlana, if you look at the great poets of that tradition, they were speaking about the reed that cries in the wilderness because it's been cut away from the stalk that led to its connection to the God that you always seek connection to. And that's my perspective on religion, and it's covered so beautifully in Sufi Islam. But when you get caught up into the religious, legal aspects of religion, it frustrates me to no end.